Walter Sisulu University have been one of the major talking points of this year's Varsity Shield, where they currently find themselves in second place with a game in hand. This is after they won all three of their matches so far, with bonus point victories, but things haven't been as rosy behind the scenes at WSU, with players struggling to get even the basic necessities such as edible foods out of the university management. Joining me now to discuss the issue facing the side for their rendition of the All Blacks haka is sports journalist Yolulwe Koshe. So good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making time. Let's just start from the start. I mean, you made these breaking revelations late last week that these players weren't getting paid, and they are doing phenomenal work on the rugby field, emulating the All Blacks, even with their haka. But it's been a difficult time for the WSU rugby players at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think it shocks everyone to find out that, look, the results on the field don't necessarily mirror what the situation has been for the young lads off the field. You know, they've had a lot of travails hitting them. So, you know, when I got the communication from them, I was shocked to even find out that there is an issue, you know. So that's why I was so tempted to when I wanted to listen. And to my dismay, you know, the issues ran a lot deeper than what I would have thought initially. So having heard murmurs in previous years of certain situations that are similar to this, I was very keen to listen and also very keen to help this time, as in previous years I didn't really had a platform in which I could assist.
Now, let's quickly talk about those issues, Yolulwe. I mean, from the start, it seemed as though the players for this year weren't able to feed themselves. First of all, there was talks of them, of the university. I mean, first of all, the university gets money from Varsity Cup for these players, right? Where did that money go? Why weren't they able to feed themselves? It went to a point where they had to get ladies to cook for them who didn't get paid, and they downed tools as well. And then also there was the registration fee issue where some of the players weren't registered.
Yes, according to the players, in years gone by, the university used to be able to get food straight from a local spa, ready-made food for the players to eat. Now, my understanding from the players is that from 2019, that policy had changed, and the school now went and used the policy where they buy in bulk, right, from wholesales, and that then results in expired food because a lot of that food is on price. So the money is there to the understanding of the players, but it's how it's being used that has been the issue for them. It seems as if it's more of a money-saving tactic from the top, more than making sure that the players who really, really are doing the hard work on the field get the best nutrition possible. And then in terms of the registration of the players, in years gone by, it was a well-known policy from within the school, I gather, that the rugby players get their 10%. You have to have a 10% down payment for registration before the year starts. So it was a known policy that the school does take care of that for the rugby players, and usually the registration had been a swift process. But then what had happened this time around, funny enough, is that the players were told, those who are not funded by NSFAS were told that if you don't have your 10% ready by the time that we kick off the tournament, you would have to strike a deal where you would have to pay that 10% using your match fees at the tournament. So that sparked a whole different debacle in itself, because players were saying, why would I then go and sweat out everything there and not get rewarded financially, and instead all of my blood, sweat, and tears would go towards paying a tuition that was usually paid in these teams. And the only time a resolution came about with that situation is when the players approached the SRC for help, and then they were told that the funds were there, but then they had to be signed off by a sports administrator. So when the sports administrator was told by the players that they would rather not travel, that's when all of a sudden the funds appeared and the players were able to get their 10% sorted. Surprise, surprise.
I mean, it just leaves a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth, even though it is sorted now. The fact that it had to get to that point. You say the funds were there, but they weren't signed off by the sports administrator. Why? Do we know exactly, you know, what the reason was for that? And then also the fact that they were going to get paid match fees, but they didn't get paid match fees. So how were they supposed to register if their match fees never arrived in the first place, as they had, you know, agreed with the university management?
Well, according to the players, the head of sports had resigned. I'm not sure if it was before or after, but there wasn't a head of sport after the head of sport had told them that the 10% had to be paid off, right? So maybe after that whole debacle, then the head of sport had then resigned. So that probably would have also delayed the whole process. But in terms of the match fees only come after the first bio bubble. So by the time of registration, they did not have any position to have fees at all. It's literally coming from home. A lot of these players, and when it comes to January, February time, their parents give their last sacrifices just so they can get to Eastland. So they're expecting them to have 10% to pay for the tuition would have been an even bigger problem for them.
Absolutely, and the match fees, of course, it also remains a problem in terms of how much they are receiving, the players, and how they've been restructured with a win and a loss and a draw, different match fees, obviously, as you'd expect, but it seems like they don't think it's all that fair.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying since 2017 they have been trying to get increases with them, and it is getting there, I suppose, with the type of figures that they're talking about. I mean, 1,250, I think it is for a bonus point victory. And if you get a normal victory, then it's 1,000. They had to push for that. They had to push for that because they realized somewhere along the line that, hang on, no, man, there are funds there. There are funds that are allocated, and there are bigger funds who just can cater for a bigger match fee. Now, the reason why the players are pushing for such a big match fee is because they have to sign indemnity forms that tell them that, listen, if you get injured while you're on duty wearing the Rusu jersey, we are not responsible for your injury. So that has put the players in a position where they're completely perplexed by that because, look, we are sweating it out for the university, our blood, sweat, and tears representing you guys on national TV, trying to increase the reputation of your name. But if we get injured in the process of making the school look good, then the school disowns us, basically. So the players are saying, at least if we have match fees of a certain figure, then we will be able to see how we can go about our medical situation. I'm hearing also from the players that already there have been players who have been hit so hard by that indemnity form, players that have had to have surgery on injuries costing about 40 to 50,000 rand. So it is something that doesn't sit well with them, and that's why they're so adamant and they're always pressing with matters of finances because they know outside of those match fees, they literally have nothing and they're on their own in terms of the university funding. And just to touch on that, last year, this is the alarming part, last year, they told me that they received the April match fees in October. So that's the stage in which they're dealing with when it comes to finances. They've always been given the runaround. So it's really, really a travesty.
Essentially 6 months after they played those games. Is this, a generally accepted principle or something that happens at the other universities where players have to take care of their own medical fees, especially being, I would say, semi-professional or almost professional rugby players?
When I asked the question about just not only that, but also the other situations, that they are faced with, they told me that, listen, when we speak to the other boys from other universities, the only problems they have is what tactics they're going to implement on the field, and they're saying that they wish they were in that position, where the only thing they have to worry about is how they're going to go about their situation on the pitch, And one player even said in the article that I wrote, listen, we should be relaxed as players. We should want to go out there and play our game. That should be our main focus. And we should be able to also, because don't forget, while in the bio bubble, the players are students, so they are studying, So now imagine all of this happening and you still have to study. You're thinking about, look, if I get injured, I'm not going to be taken care of. I might not even eat after this battle. And, I'm not sure when my next payment might come in. They seem to be the only players that consistently have this type of issue, not just this year, but in years gone by as well, according to my understanding, because I've received multiple calls since breaking that story from always since 2010 telling me that, listen, this has always been the case. People from 2016 commenting, people from 2018 commenting about the hunger situation. So it's nothing new for them, unfortunately, but I hope now, at least because it's been put out to the public and the boys have been brave enough, that the pressure will eventually tell and the people responsible for this will realize that, listen, they're being watched and monitored quite closely with this regard.
Well, it seems like the pressure has told you, Lulu, and I mean, it had to take what I understand tense negotiations between the boys and the sports management of the university, but they've reached an agreement. The boys have boarded the plane to Pretoria. Well, they will already be in the capital city by now, and it seems like all is a go, but how long is that situation going to remain that way?
Yeah, I'd like to use the word reprieve more than a solution. And that is because, a reprieve is just more temporary. Because like you asked, how long is that going to go ahead? And the players this is another thing the players emphasize. They say every time every time we want to be heard, every time the university has to stick to the agreement, we have to be radical. We have to be seen as rebellious just to get them to listen and to take their agreements with us seriously. You know what I'm saying? So even in this case, it had taken so much pressure. It had taken so much pressure, and without that pressure, who knows what would have happened? If the boys were not brave enough to speak up, who knows when a reprieve would have come, because it is people from outside, it's a sports department from Eastern Cape that came in and try to intervene with this whole situation, So, so far it's so good from the players. I understand they're in good spirits. I understand they're just focusing on the rugby again. But in the back of their heads, of course, like they've told me, it's lingering, of course. Because one of the other big concerns they said is that, okay, because 30 people travel to a bio bubble, but that's not the full squad. At least 12 remain behind. So they say, okay, we are always sorted when we go to the bubble because Varsity Cup takes care of us. But our brothers that remain behind, we are most worried about because who's taking care of them? Are they even being taken care of? Because the last time they left them in the bio bubble, they told the guys that left that they had been neglected. So that's still an issue now. Now that we're in Pretoria, are our boys going to be taken care of, or are they going to be hungry? So it's a reprieve now, but we'll have to monitor the situation closely to see how long it lasts. But definitely.
Have the boys been paid their monies? I know the promises were made, but have they actually seen the money in the bank, or are they just going on, you will get it? I'm assuming that they'll get another lump sum after this bio bubble, well, supposedly.
Yes, the players confirmed to me just yesterday afternoon that everyone had received their payments. Everyone is happy. It is reflected for everybody, which was understandably a huge sticking point during the week. It was a make or break touch and go situation with the match fees, and when you hear what I've said previously on this interview and different interviews and the article, why that money is so important to them, then you understand why they won't go and risk themselves getting injured at a tournament without getting that financial security. So yeah, that match fee situation was a huge sticking point to them. Even though they had tested, firstly they refused to test without receiving food, and then the food came, and then they said we refused to go. Still, even though we've tested, we refused to go until the match fees come. Then the match fees came. So for me, the biggest question is, why do they always have to counter threat before they get what was supposed to be due to them and what has already been agreed? That for me is a situation that I hope changes for the university, because the university has a talented group of players all the time. And all they need now is to pull their weight, and everybody can be happy, and the results will always reflect on the field. Imagine how much more these players could have done had everything been sorted behind the scenes. We could have seen bigger scores on the field because the potential is clearly there. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's just my hope going forward.
Thank you so much for your time. He is a freelance journalist, and I mean, he's speaking about something very important. Of course, these young men play in the Varsity Shield, looking to make a career out of rugby and also trying to provide something for their families. But having to battle like that just to get the bare necessities, the basics, food for one, or medical care, is definitely something that no rugby player at that age and at that stage of life wants to be facing.